Would I grow lemon boy tomatoes again here in the low desert of Arizona? Probably not. And this video is over. Just kidding on the video being over, not on the lemon boy verdict. Here are all the reasons why, along with some of the things you may have to overcome in order to be more successful than we were. Lemon boys are a medium-sized tomato that are, according to this picture, a beautiful bright yellow tomato. However, our experience did not produce such fine specimens. It took just under 3 months to go from a medium-sized transplant to harvest. We started with transplants mid-March and had some nice-sized tomatoes by mid-May, and it took another month for what the hornworms left us to turn to a lovely yellow. Now compare this with sun gold tomatoes, where you have a really pretty yellow flower, and within weeks you have a tomato you can actually pick and pop in your mouth right on the spot. One of the problems is the heat and the shorter growing seasons, which is why smaller grape and cherry-sized tomatoes are easy and fast wins in the garden. They grow faster, and they're not as prone to splitting, and if you get them before the hornworms arrive, you get to eat them. And then you can see our lemon boys are not doing really well. Oh, I stepped on it! Oh, gross! That one we were gonna open up to see what had happened because it was all mushy, but well, dang. That's that. Ugh. Okay, moving on. Despite a regular watering schedule, keeping track of all the days and the amount of water on the beds, more on that in a follow-on video. The surviving lemon boy tomatoes looked like Edward Scissorhands touched them every day, and this was the result. There. You can see these splits right here. They're every single direction. It's a little nutty. While these are still edible, before eating, there's a lot of tomato that has to get cut off before actually enjoying, both visually and texture-wise, what's headed for your mouth on a fork. Yuck. Double yuck. Ugh. What's left is not so much. The lemon boy tomato plant did not have a very high yield. What would I do differently next time? Start a month sooner when the temperatures are much cooler. The difference between May, where we worked our way out of the 80s and 90s, and getting well into the hundreds in June was significant. We should have put the same size plant in the ground at the end of February once the forecast did not include any more freeze warnings. Dialing in the watering schedule was also an issue. I will admit, while we were out of town, I probably watered too often, which also resulted in splitting. As a new gardener, these two factors are two of the biggest learning curves, and again, starting with a less challenging tomato would have been a better choice starting out. Uh-oh. Oh no. The last tomato really was a bit unexpected and behind. This poses a problem. When everything else was dying off, I'd cut off most of the limbs and noticed one lone tomato left. Now, since this is an indeterminate plant, it keeps growing up, and away with the okra competing. It still survived, but it took a very long time for this last one to ripen to that beautiful yellow state. It was edible, but it wasn't as large as the other ones, probably because of the heat. If I see something trying to grow, I have a really hard time killing it. And not only was I just willing to wait for that one last tomato right here, but I started seeing a few leaves growing. If you saw last week's video on how to cut back, doing some major cutbacks on tomatoes so you can have a second harvest, these indeterminate tomatoes that just grow huge. I mean, at some point you run out of trellis, it's really nice to start over with the smaller plant so that it can grow up again, a little more manageable at that point. However, as you can see right here, it just never happened. I didn't cut any more off. I really, really was hoping that it could start growing and have that new round of growth, but that didn't end up happening here. I just saved this dead part so you could see what the end result was on video, live video. Instead, and it's not that I'm hating on lemon boy tomatoes. It was a fun experiment, but there are just other tomatoes that perform better here in the low desert of Arizona, and I would prefer to have more success. Sun golds, and we'll see what else ends up happening. We have 6 or 7 other kinds of tomatoes that are all of a smaller variety in the in-ground bed, along with the sun gold in the bed right behind me. What is that? I think that is a Roselle tomato in the back here. So just a lot of different varieties that we're trying out to see what grows best. Smaller seems to be better here in the low desert. But again, if you haven't checked out how you can overwinter, have a second round of tomatoes, check out last week's video here, but definitely add any comments below for additional tips, not just for myself, but for other people that are watching this video. And thank you for watching.